And before you open your eyes and come into this present moment, just take a moment and just move your body, perhaps twist, do anything that makes your body feel comfortable in this moment. You can twist from side to side, shrug the shoulders up to the ears and back, roll the head. Just feel comfortable in your body. And then, when you're ready, you can slowly open the eyes. Excellent. Well, today we're going to be talking about the Hatha Yoga Pradipika in the context of something which might be a little, which brings together what I call the three different aspects or objectives of what I believe yoga studies really are about. One is we're going to explore a bit of the texts themselves, looking at the Hatha Yoga Pradipika from the context of a linguistic, theological, and philosophical frame, but also to really reposition yoga as through the contemporary lens of what brain science research and behavioral health can tell us, to afford us a new paradigm of yoga, and to see how that new paradigm of yoga can be applied into issues that are relevant today, such as mental health issues, behavioral health issues. And really what I feel to be so powerful, as many of you know, the study of yoga is evolving. We are now gifted with having this whole branch of scientific research that can align or that can unite into the ancient spiritual practices and textual richness of the yoga texts. So today, we're going to be exploring these three different components, and at the end, we're going to see, doing some practices to see how they can begin to be utilized into our own life, but also to help address some health issues that are happening in our world today as well. So we're going to look at the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, the HYP acronym, as a model for resilience. That's really how I'm going to look at it today. So this unique perspective, looking at the content of the HYP through the lens of what is resilience in brain, body, and being, and look to see where it aligns with current brain science research, as well as their applications for behavioral and mental health issues. So a lot of the research I'm going to be showing you today comes from two works that I've already worked on. My ebook, Brain, Body, and Being, hence the title, the subtitle for this talk today, as well as a yoga manual that I published almost a decade ago when I was a yoga certified, when I was leading yoga certification trainings and as a yoga meditation instructor. So you're going to see a little bit of this in today's talk, but mostly I like to really go into the text themselves. Now all of you here I know have read the HYP, and so there's really going to be some nuanced exploration into this text today, which might be something which is unique that you might not have heard before. So this idea is really much so about the word Pradipika itself means pra, forward, deep, shining, to shine forth, illumination. So the HYP, the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, illuminates us into insights on how we can use the practice and the asanas, the mudras and pranayama techniques in such a way that begin to shed light onto how we can better engage into the world. So I'm not going to go into much of the Sanskrit. I'm going to go a little bit. I highlighted some really key, as you can see, I've got some key shlokas that I've highlighted or spotlighting, of which there are some key words or phrases in these shlokas I want to focus on today. And the translations are really my own translations that I've done from my work with the texts over the several years. So the first one, section 1, chapter 1, verse 39, this idea of all the 84 asanas that are exposed in the yoga practice around this time, they are said that Siddhasana is said to be the one which is the most supreme because it purifies the 72,000 nadis. If Siddhasana is perfected and the breath is carefully restrained in Kevala Kumbhaka, what need is there for all other asanas? So it really positions the idea of siddhasana, which really is one of the most basic asanas which we'll be doing it towards the end of today, and underscores it as a means to achieve the highest perfection. The word siddha, or siddh, means perfected. So it really underscores this idea of siddhasana as the perfected asana to purify the nadis. So here we have an exposition of the HYP as a text that is about advancing health, removing disease. It's not so much about, look at me, how flexible I am, and how great I can do, the various poses, but using the poses as a strategy or as a paradigm to experience greater health in one's life. So I thought for fun, because all of you do have some background in Sanskrit, would you like to do just a chanting of one shloka together? Okay, so I'll chant it. This is going to be the top one. It's the top. So you can enjoy doing this together, voluntarily if you want. So I'll chant it first, and then we can do it together as a group. So it's the top one over here. Chale bate chalam chitam, nischale nischalam bhavet, yogi stanutvam apnoti tato vayam nirodhaye. Let's try this together, shall we? So we'll do it half shloka at a time. Chale bate chalam chitam, nischale nischalam bhavet, yogi stanutvam apnoti tato vayam nirodhaye. So I find this to be a really powerful shloka. It's in chapter 2, but it really underscores the idea that when the breath, which is called vatu, or vate in the locative, is the idea that when the breath wanders, chale, when the breath wanders or becomes irregular, this now allows the mind to wander. So here we see this idea that the yogi achieves firmness, this idea of sthanutvam, this idea of firmness, standing, if you will, when the breath also achieves firmness. So here we see a direct correlation in this ancient text, where there is a connection between the quality of the breath and the quality of the mind. I always say whenever I teach, whether it's a yoga class or the students, how you choose to breathe determines how you choose to live, how you choose to heal, and how you choose to be. And we see it squarely, advanced in this text. When this is chapter 2, section shloka 4. When the nadis are impure, breath cannot go into the middle. What does that middle mean? Well, the sushumna nadi, the main sushumna nadi that regulates all aspects, that governs all the other 72,000 nadis. So when the nadis are impure, the prana, the life force, cannot go into the middle. The sthiti becomes nothing, nor reaches the state of unmani. I haven't translated that word just yet, because we're going to come back to that term, unmani, in just a short while. But the idea is that, united in pranayama, we deliver ourselves from all diseases. By faulty practice, the yogi invites all kinds of ailments. So here we see it's underscoring this powerful idea of the correlation between the prana, the mind, and the health of the individual. So kind of keep these themes in mind as we move forward. We have this idea of steadiness of mind is born when the breath moves freely in the middle, again the sushumna. And the idea that it is manomani, again I'm not translating that word just yet for now, this condition or state is attained when the mind becomes well steady. So it's interesting that we see in a Hatha Yoga text that even though there are expositions into the various forms of the physical asana practice, they're more so a vehicle or a means to achieve that state of steadiness, this state of manomani, which we'll talk about shortly, that brings the yogin into a state of resilience, into a state of being firm and structured. There is only one seed, Om. There's only one mudra, Kechari. Only one God, the self-supported of Brahman, and only one spiritual state, the avastha called manomani. All breath should be practiced with concentrated mind. Again, this idea, it's about disciplining the mind. And of course, you see this in earlier yoga texts, what's the Yoga Sutras, Yogaschitti Vritti Nirodha. You see in the Bhagavad Gita text when Arjuna is told by Lord Krishna that it's when the reins of the chariot are slack, the mind is undisciplined. So it really affirms this idea that controlling the senses, being able to control the mind, is the foundation or the tenet for experiencing yoga, the state of union. Now, lastly, in this idea, and we'll do this practice towards the end. In my opinion, concentrating on the space between the eyebrows is the best way to attain unmani in a short time, even though it's for a small intellect. This is the easiest means to attain Raja Yoga. Mind is the seed, Hatha is the field, Distashin, the water. Out of these three grows unmani, the tree that fulfills all wishes. So you've been hearing this, you've been seeing this phrase unmani. How many of you have remembered this from having read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika? No? A little bit? Okay. Well, let's talk about it. This is where knowing Sanskrit and having knowledge of Sanskrit is so key in yoga studies. Let's look at this. I pulled this from the Monet-Williams dictionary. What unmani means? Well, for those of you who can see over here on the left, this is pulled from the Monet-Williams in a dictionary lexicon. It derives from unmanas, okay, which comes from udman, excited as an adjective, excited, disturbed, and mind perplexed. You're like, wow, that doesn't sound like a desirable goal, for a yogin to have a perplexed or disturbed mind. Longing, wish for, eager, desirous. To excite as a verb, unmanayati. It's a class 10 verb in Sanskrit, causative verb to cause excitement in the mind. Unmanaska, another adjective, disturbed, perplexed. You're like, wow, why would the Hatha Yoga Pradipika advance this idea of unmani as a desirable goal? Anyone have any ideas as to why that is? Yes.
Because the being perplexed is kind of a concept that implies you've lost your mind, your
Right.
thinking process.
Yes.
So when you're perplexed, it's like the thoughts are just like, there's spaciousness in your mind when you're perplexed because you can't think.
Right. So this is it's a good dichotomy. This idea that how does this connotation unmani, which has original negative connotation, become a positive connotation in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika? Well, again, knowing the Sanskrit language and the derivatives of the words are very helpful. So as we know, it comes from the word ud, man, or ma. Ud means a prefix out of, apart from, or of, mind or thought to think. Literally out of one's mind, as Abby just said. This idea, now this is where linguistics, or looking at something I call cognitive linguistics, which is something I've studied, really reveals the nuances of the connotation, the semantics of this word. So you all know the phrase, "Are you out of your mind?" Okay, which is the idea that, are you crazy? You've got to be kidding me. Are you out of your mind? But we also have this phrase in English, "get out of your mind." Okay, so you see, there's this what we call a dual semantic connotation of this phrase "out of your mind," as Abby kind of alluded to, expresses. My interpretation of this, of why this is so powerful in the yogic, in the HYP, it has this dual connotation. In this sense, it has the positive connotation, getting out of your mind, getting out of the absence of all the chatterings. You can probably guess how this has literary allusions or philosophical allusions to chapter 1, shloka 2 in the Yoga Sutras. Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha. Getting out of the turnings of thought, restraining them. We see the same parallel in Buddhism, in the Ayurvedic philosophy, this idea that all diseases begin in the mind, and it is only in the mind where they are first healed. So the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, because it's been written relatively later than the earlier texts, is a synthesis of all the earlier traditions. Not just the yoga traditions, the Yoga Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedanta philosophy, the Tantric philosophies. It also, you'll see threads or strands of Buddhist philosophy and Ayurvedic philosophy and Tantric healing practices integrated into the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which underscores this idea behind this word win money. So, part 2.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just because you're a linguist. The word restrain has bothered me
Mm-hmm.
throughout our readings of the text.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I can, and I think it's very difficult to use the word restrain for this audience as it relates to pranayama and kumbhaka.
Right.
And what I'm wondering, the only way I can get good with it is looking at it through a Latin derivative, which is re, sto, stare, to
Right.
restand in a
Restand.
different place, or
Mhm.
retrain.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense to you?
It very much does so. And this is where we have to be very nuanced in our translation. So that's a really good point. When we say restrain, I think, to strain, I'm not sure if it goes back to the stare. I'll have to look at that.
Mhm.
If it does, the Latin stare.
Mhm.
But how to really maybe position this idea, it's maybe because this word yuk, yoga, yog is to harness or to yoke.
Mhm.
I wonder in the context of when we translate words like nirodha, it's more like about not so much the sense of restraining, but maybe harnessing. This idea of like having a sense of control. What you're going to see is, in very short, a couple of slides, is how this actually might be expressed in a concept I'll talk about very briefly. But this idea, unlocking the power of the mind, we have been gifted in the past 10 years of learning more about the human brain in the past 10 years than we have in the past 1,000 years. And I would have been really interesting to have known had the ancient yogis who had the inner technology of being able to scan and be able to have access to this inner knowledge of wisdom, had they been able to have the access to all the medical technology we have today, how different would the yoga traditions, how far they would have evolved. But here's what we're saying. Yoga studies is a discipline that is constantly evolving. We can now use current research in brain science and behavioral health research to see how it can begin to align and advance the traditional concepts and ideas and practices of the yoga texts. So the mind and the brain via traditional Western science really views the body and health and healing through what I call a biopsychophysical model. So it looks at the brain and the body primarily through a reductionist, evolutionary, treat the body through chemotherapy, surgery, cognitive therapy, pharmaceuticals. Yoga looks at the brain and the mind through what I call a biopsychoenergetic model. So we see prana, the breath, asana, the nadis, the chakras, the meditation, inner awareness, and consciousness, all being integral components in this biopsychoenergetic model. It's not that either one is superior to the other, but if you begin to integrate the two models together, this can form a new paradigm that can begin to take the best of both disciplines and utilize or integrate them into a new paradigm of practice. So yoga bridges the brain, body, and being. This is the idea, this was an article I wrote on Ayurveda and early Vedic medicine. Yoga encompasses both the bio-psychoenergetic and the cosmological paradigm in which the physical body is intimately connected to the mind, the brain, and the spirit, our being. So we see these references of the integration of the brain, body, and being throughout the yoga texts. But now what we have with the advancements in medical sciences and brain science research, we can now take it to the next level and really begin to see their applications. So this is what Abby is kind of referring to. I really kind of see yoga and the practice of yoga is learning to control the controllable. And so maybe the word restrain is perhaps not the most appropriate English word to use for words like nirodha, even the word yum, that verb yum, ayam. Some people have it as to restrain or to hold back or even to extend. So it has these dual meanings. So perhaps what I think might be a better term is regulate. So I think regulate is a better nuanced term than restrain. So regulate, rather than restraining the breath, we regulate the breath. Rather than restraining the mind, we regulate the mind. Rather than restraining back our emotions, we regulate our emotions. Rather than restraining our thoughts, we regulate our thoughts. So regulation really, I think, is a more nuanced word, and the word regulate, for those of you who know your Latin, actually has the same word as raja. So raja yoga is regulation yoga. That's how I look at it. It's the yoga of regulation, it's Raja Yoga. So, because the word Raja, to regulate, has the same Indo-European derivatives and origins. So, it's really about what regulates brain, body, and being. Well, yoga, of course. And this is where all the research in brain science and behavioral health is really showing the immense power of yoga, whether it's pranayama, the mudras, the asana practice, meditation practice. I'm looking to take all the 8 branches of the Yoga Sutras and begin to actually see where current neuroscience, brain science research affirms every single point of the 8 layers. This is where it's going to get really exciting. But the idea, we see that increasing serotonin, beta endorphins, decreasing cortisol, biomarkers for stress, and the list goes on. And what I find to be most powerful is that the last 3 I mentioned, or the last 4, are really relatively new discoveries that we are finding with yoga and pranayama. The idea that it begins to develop and strengthen the mirror neuronal system, which is our empathy system, a compassion system in the brain. The vagus nerve stimulation, we're going to talk a little about that and do a little exercise to do vagal nerve stimulation and what the effects of that has. Increasing oxytocin. And most recently, just in the past year, 3 months actually, an article got published that shows that there are specific neurons in the brain that regulate how we breathe and tell our breath, hey, calm down. This is actually, there's no dangerous situation here. So of course, the researchers, rightfully so, call these neurons pranayama neurons. That's the official name for them right now. So we're seeing this powerful role that yoga actually, this thousands of year old practice is coming into the modern world, and bridging it with contemporary neuroscience is going to, I think, really begin to blossom in a whole new, amazing way, which is why it's so exciting to be involved in yoga studies at this very moment. But the power of pranayama. I love Dr. James Gordon saying, slow, deep breathing is probably the single best anti-stress medicine we have. We know this to be the case. But when you look at the spiritual texts, and again, Abby kind of alluded to the idea of looking at the origins of words. The word spirit, spiritus in Latin, is the same word that we use for breath, respiration, expiration. Inspiration, for that matter. Inspiration is when you have the spirit inside of you, when you're full of breath, prana, creativity. Respiration, breathing, spirit in and out over and over again. But we see this idea of the word breath and the word spirit being there not just in Latin, it's there in Greek, pneuma, the Hebrew halach, Sanskrit prana, Latin animus. All these words are there. It's connection between the breath and our spirits. Now, what I like to do is show you very quickly why breathing and regulating the breath is so powerful to regulate fear and stress. This is a very non-medical image of the brain. The brain doesn't look like this, of course. But you kind of get a sense that when you experience stress or fear in your body, there's a primal structure of the brain called the limbic brain, something's called the reptilian brain, that is governed by the amygdala. The amygdala is one of the earliest layers of the limbic brain, the earlier brain, that governs our fight or flight. It governs our stress response. And what we're finding is that why stress and fear gets stored so strongly as memory into our body is because the hippocampus, which is situated just above the amygdala, is where long-term memories of fear and stress get stored. This is where trauma is stored in the body, in the brain. But of course, we kind of deal with trauma through drugs or through talk therapy. But what we're finding is that yoga and pranayama can be a very powerful mechanism in dealing with trauma. It's the work that I do currently at the moment with individuals. I did a training for all of Orange County's mental health care agency, over 150 practitioners, showing them the neuroscience research on how breath and just meditation actually can be used with efficacy in the dealing with trauma and PTSD. So what we're finding is that this connection between the amygdala and the hippocampus is very strong. But the connection between the hippocampus and the amygdala with the prefrontal cortex, where decisions get made, is very weak. What we're finding is that when you do pranayama breath or when you do meditation, this becomes stronger. It's this link that becomes stronger and now will become more dominant over your brain's more instinctive connection between the amygdala and the hippocampus. We also find how yoga can be used as therapy. As I mentioned just earlier before, stress and trauma are not just isolated to our brain or to our body, but to our very being. They impact us spiritually, existentially, and socially as well. I really view trauma from what I call a bio-psycho-social-spiritual dysregulation. So looking at trauma not just from this the Western model of health as biophysical, but really looking at trauma in this bio-psychoenergetic, but what I'm calling more clinically bio-psycho-social-spiritual dysregulation. What we're seeing is that yoga and meditation can do this. So what I want to do really quickly is show you some research that's coming out and then do a little practice ourselves to see how this can work for ourselves to create resilience. I feel very strongly that yoga is about resilience. Most of you, including myself, came to yoga after a crisis. I had a very personal family tragedy take place when I was younger that led me to yoga. And it really was a powerful tool to help me deal with my trauma and help me deal with my own depression and anxiety and stress that I experienced when I was in my early 20s. But the idea is that resilience is the ability to enhance positive coping mechanisms to stress and in times of adversity. That's the clinical definition of what we're finding for resilience. But what we're seeing is that resilience, this is the talk I gave just 2 weeks ago to Orange County's healthcare agency on healing the brain and resilience. But the idea is that life is hard. We know this to be the case. How can we use yoga and all the powerful wisdom of the yoga study, of the yoga traditions, whether it's pranayama, the mudras, the meditation, the asana practice, in such a way that can begin to be utilized to regulate stress, to regulate trauma, and to promote resiliency. So the Pentagon's already doing this. The Pentagon has already established spiritual resilience programs where they're training all incoming cadets into the Pentagon, into the Army, to become more resilient. This is actually pioneered by General Rhonda Cordum, who realized the power of what yoga and meditation can do for individuals, especially if you're going to a combat war zone, to gain that sense of resilience. They call it the Ready and Resilient Program. So this idea is that they're using the DoD, Department of Defense, U.S. military, already using this in their own way. But what I'd like to do is go through a little practice with you and show you just how using meditation and even doing some pranayama work can help you shift into and promote what's called vagal nerve stimulation. Most of you here, I believe, you know what the vagus nerve is. Most of you here probably do. It's the longest nerve in the body that regulates the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. It brings us back into homeostasis. And here's something that you may know. Why I had you do your deep belly breathing and visualize that visible balloon just a few inches below your navel, that's where your vagus nerve terminates. Your vagus nerve terminates just about 2 or 3 inches just below your navel and flares out like a fan. And so when you do deep belly breathing, sometimes Buddhayani, Bandha, or even anytime the deep belly breathing, it tells your vagus nerve everything is A-OK. It's going to be fine. It tells the pranayama neurons in your brain to become regulated. Should we try this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's close our eyes. We have a few minutes to do this. So we close our eyes. I'll sit down for this as well. And just come into a state or a space of unmani, this word we talked about, the sense of getting out of our mind. So to help do this, let's have our internal drishti, our internal awareness or concentration or focus, come to the center of our eyebrows. You can do this with eyes closed or even just eyes slightly open. Either way is fine. And even though we're not doing traditional siddhasana, you can go ahead and take your spine nice and tall, and you can go ahead and place the thumb and the forefingers into the mudra pose, and just place them with the palms turned upwards onto the knees. And with your awareness focused into the Ajna chakra between the eyebrows, the third eye, just begin to take some nice, slow, deep inhalations. You're welcome to even just begin to lower the chin, if the chin begins to gently rest onto the top of the chest. This begins to create the Jalandhara Bandha. It begins to elongate the Sushumna. Just begin to take some nice, slow, deep inhales, expanding lower belly to a count of 3. Gently exhaling through the nostrils to count to 3. Just doing this on your own for a few rounds. If you're familiar with the Kechari Mudra, which is the curling of the tip of the tongue back so it touches the roof of your mouth, you're welcome to do this. Let's do a variation on this pose and on this mudra with integrating some vibrational humming. So with the tip of the tongue curled back towards the roof of the mouth in Kechari Mudra, I'm going to take a nice deep inhale. When you exhale, you're going to make a vibration humming sound right at that point where the tip of your tongue resonates against the roof of your mouth. It's going to sound like this. Let's try this together. Inhaling in. Inhaling in. Last time, inhaling in. Releasing the tongue, raising the chin back up, relaxing the hands, taking a nice deep breath in. Just exhale, open the eyes. So, if you felt or are feeling a little sensation, or a little maybe a sense of vitality or prana in your body, we've discovered that when you chant, when you do humming vibrations, it begins to stimulate a sub-branch of the vagus nerve called the auricular vagus nerve branch, which extends from the vagus nerve into the back of the ear, the tympanic part of the ear right there. And what we're finding is that when you chant Om, or do anything that stimulates the auricular branch of the vagus nerve, it begins to promote VNS, vagal nerve stimulation, which tells the body, the brain, and the being to come into calmness. It regulates them. So all these practices are about building resilience for self and society. It's how I feel it. There really is so much power in this. We're using yoga as a way to overcome PTSD. I know this to be true. I'm doing work in this already with PTSD, people with depression, anxiety. This work is very powerful that we're doing in yoga studies. And I'd like to leave you with one last shloka from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Chitanandam tada jitva sahajana anand samavaha dosha duhuka jara vyadi kshudhani dhravi arjitaha. Having overcome the blissful state of the mind, one experiences one's natural state of bliss appears. Then one is free of all faults, misery, old age, disease, hunger, and fatigue. Here we see in Shloka 475, healing the brain, body, and being. We heal all these things, whether it's this idea of disease, misery, whether it's the body, disease, old age, even fatigue. All these things are healing the brain, body, and being. What this word unmani, which earlier meant this idea of being perplexed or disturbed, one can say that's the sabotage, as well as being the solution. Mm-hmm. So here we have this word unmani, which I went through very shortly, and what is, I think, the subtlety of that word is that it expresses, I think, trifold actually. It's the sabotage, it is the solution, and it's also the strategy to help achieve resilience in brain, body, and being. So I thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to having any questions after we finish. Okay. Thank you.